Welcome to the Embodied Business Show. I'm your host for the day, Urbain, and I have my guest here, Casey.
Welcome.
You may or may not know her.
Urbain has hijacked the Embodied Business Show podcast today, and I'm super excited. It's 11:11 as we're recording right now. It's been quite some time. We are currently in Austin. We are traveling as a family, living our dreams, living what we desire. And he has said to me, I want to take over your podcast for a whole episode. So I don't know what's coming. I don't know what's happening. I'm just going to hand this one over and be like, floor is yours, babe.
All right. Well, the plan is there is no plan, but we're just going to have a chat.
Just going to have a chat. Okay. We're just going to have a chat. Embodied business. For those of you who have listened to this podcast for quite some time and have been waiting for another episode to come out, I just want to give some awareness of where we've been. We have had the biggest couple of months over the last few months. We are now engaged. Thanks, babe.
It's been that long since you've done a podcast.
It's been a while. I have been so busy, and I was like, when I come back in, I want to be really vibrant, really alive, really available for it. And so my whole plan was the next season of Embodied Business is in studio, is really, really going there. So I actually am a little bit in love with the fact that you're the first episode here, because I'm pretty in love with you, I have to say.
Okay, first question.
All right.
If you could have lunch with any three people, who would they be and why?
Ooh. That's really interesting what's come through. The first answer that came through surprisingly was my parents, which actually feels a bit emotional for me, as we've had a lot of health challenges lately, a lot of things that have happened in my family.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the reason why we also haven't done podcasts. Yeah, that was the first thing that came through. I would just like to really make sure that they knew how much I love them and appreciate them. The second...
And just so you know, I mean three people at lunch all at once at the same table.
Oh, at the same table. Oh,
Yep.
Okay. That changes things. Okay. This is crazy. First one is Michael Jackson. And I'm not a huge Michael Jackson fan, but I feel like he knew so much that was going on in the world. I feel like he was probably one of the most aware people of what was happening. He'd be one.
And you want to get all the conspiracy theories?
I want to get all of them.
Tell me this. Did he touch those kids?
No, I don't believe he did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's true. I don't know. But if Macaulay Culkin is running around saying to everyone he didn't do it, if Aaron Carter is running around telling everyone he didn't do it, and they've all Aaron Carter's dead, other people have had things happen to them.
But on the other hand, if one person says you're a duck, you may not be a duck. But if fucking multiple people are saying that you're a duck, then maybe you touch the kids.
I don't know. I just don't know. And I don't want to sit here and say he did or he didn't, because I really don't know. However, he was also acquitted of all of those charges. So there's something there. He also owned 50% of the Sony label. So there's also something there. There's so much to it, okay, without going too deep into it.
All right, let's not get stuck in the weeds. But Michael Jackson, that's a good one.
Michael Jackson is one. I just want to ask questions. I just want to know. Another one is Nelson Mandela.
Mm-hmm.
Because the strength that man would have to have sat in that prison cell for so long and still hold the level of leadership that he has, that's crazy. And can this be from all time, space, reality?
Can be whatever you want it to be.
My parents are still here, just so you know. They're still in the picture of it. However, Jesus Christ would be the other person.
Okay.
Because I'd want to know who he actually was, rather than the stories, the myths, the legends, all the things.
Yeah.
I would like to have a conversation with the man himself, not the book that he has been portrayed through. I'm curious.
What do you think with Jesus in particular?
Mm.
From what you know or what you've heard or what you think about Jesus in this moment, what do you think is his gift? Or people talk about Christ consciousness. What does that mean to you?
I think for me personally, and look, I'm not from any sense of the word religion or religious. But for me, Christ consciousness is unity consciousness. It is the connection to the divine. It is the law of one that runs through absolutely everything. And I believe from my own learnings, from my own teachings, from my own experiences with plant medicine and where he's come through. And so whatever that is in my own consciousness, I believe that he stood for that law, the law of oneness. I don't believe he stood for religion. I don't believe Christ consciousness has anything to do with religion. I believe it means being able to see the divinity in all parts of ourselves and others, and knowing that nothing is outside of divination or God.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to try to access Christ consciousness within themselves and they had no idea, where would you recommend they start?
Their shadow. And what I mean by that is all the parts of them that they're hurting, that feel separate from, that feel disconnected from external forces. Because for me personally, that has been the thing that has led me to this. I didn't get into this work because I believed in Jesus. Like, I was almost the opposite. Like, it came through me through this work. And when we start to look at who we actually are, where we're holding our pain, where we're holding our own suffering, we start to get answers to actually, like, how do we view the world? How do we see the world? And so it moves us into this world of our shadow, our ego, everything that's blinded us from the actual truth of life. And we can start to see from a different lens. So it's like when you start the work, it's like you go through stages. And I don't know about you, but I know I've gone through these stages. The first stage is like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, suddenly I'm this bad person. I've done all these things. You start to uncover patterns about yourself and things like that. And it's hard, but a lot of people get to that and they stay there and they don't actually move beyond well, how do I change that? What do I need to do to become the person I actually desire to become? What do I need to work on to become that person that I'm actually proud to say that that's who I am? And that comes through being willing to stand in the dark night of the soul, that first step, and really uncovering why did I become that person? Because I'm not that person, but why did I become that person? And what we mostly find is that all of that has been taught from fear, survival, scarcity, and all of that is the one thing that's separating us from Christ consciousness. Because if we actually look at it right now, we're so good. You and I had an argument the other week because I was caught in a fucking loop from years back.
Yeah.
And that in itself, that's the separation piece. We suffer when we're in that separation as opposed to when we see it, all things lining up for our highest good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even those times of suffering or pain or whatever's happened, that time when you've been really in your shadow, learning to see that as part of God's plan, part of Christ consciousness, that there is nothing separate.
100%. Because I
love
think,
that.
Yeah, and I think I the one thing that I really love about us, for example, is we can be in our shit and we can have moments where we're in it, but then once we've actually individually sat down and gone, how did I create this? We always circle back and we're like, oh, I can see how this is developing us. I can see how this is evolving us.
Yeah.
And
I can see how this is just a pattern that I learned from my dad
yeah,
that's now affecting our relationship
100%. It's all of
from
it.
my mum.
Yeah, every time we're in struggle street, it's usually something that we've learned from childhood or from societal wounds or whatever it may be. And so for me, I find it really interesting when people are like, well, how do I begin to love my life and all that sort of stuff? And it's like, you have to be willing to face off with the stuff you don't like.
Mm.
Like, and Rumi says it the best. I can't remember how he says it, but there's like a line, you might remember
The
it.
drop in the ocean one?
No, the light enters where the crack is or something. Like the light enters through
The wound?
the wound. Yeah. The wound is where the light can enter or something like that. And it's like Preston also says it as well. Our mentor, he says, the thing that most imprisons you also points to your freedom.
100%.
Yeah. And so every time we've been in moments, it's usually been something that we've felt imprisoned by. And we've had to literally like look at that shit.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So I want you to answer that question now.
What question?
Who would you have dinner with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
Who?
First, Richie McCaw.
Of course. If you really knew Urbain, you would know he's obsessed with rugby. And I bought him tickets to have dinner with him one night, and he came back with so much memorabilia, and we have nowhere to put it. It's just sitting in our storage shed.
So, number one, Richie McCaw. Reason why, probably the greatest man that ever lived. You know,
I want to ask his wife that question, really.
led not only a team but a nation to two World Cups, and it just to me he seems like a man of discipline. So he'd be number one.
Awesome.
Number two would be Paul Check.
Oh yeah. Oh, I wish I put him in mine too. He replaces Michael Jackson for me.
Chosen.
I'm sorry, he kicks out Michael Jackson. Go on. Continue.
Number two, Paul Check. Without ever meeting him, I've learned so much off him. A man that's not only deeply connected spiritually, but just so much intellect, so much knowledge, and has that holistic view of what's really going on.
Just so everyone knows as well, he's been a mentor of yours. Like you've studied under him online for years, but not actually ever met him, yeah.
Third, probably just Preston.
Just Preston?
Just Preston. Not just Preston, but probably third would be Preston Smiles, and just because I've got so much respect for him, and jumping into Preston Alexi's work was literally a pivotal point in my life where it's literally like I can just see the whole trajectory of my life changed from there. So, yeah, he's always got a spot in my heart and a spot at the table.
And a spot at the table. Yeah, it's pretty surreal actually, just how much both of our lives changed since they came into it. Like, I know I talk about him so much on this podcast, but I also don't give enough credit to Alexi. Like, she's been one of the biggest healers for my own sister wounding. Like, they're just incredible people. Hence why they've been our mentors for almost a decade.
Do you have a question, or you want me to go the next one?
I'm curious. Where are we going? You're leading the way, my love.
We're going up, down, around.
In, out.
What in say like 2 sentences without going too deep?
Oh God.
Like land the plane on this one.
All right, I'll try.
What is your thesis or principle that you try to live life by?
Oh, 2 sentences. That's a lot. Okay.
You're always telling people to land the plane.
I know. Oh, I feel like there's so much in this one. The truth is if you can't go a day without thinking about it, there's something bigger in life for you with it. And
All right, maybe explain that one a little bit.
yeah, so I don't know, like, I'm trying to get the words for it. It's like you have to follow the nudges of your soul, right? And, you know, for me, it's like if there's ever an inkling or a niggle, and it's different to fear-based pattern, but like for me, it's like if you can't go a day without thinking about it, no matter how fucking scary it is, no matter how much could potentially be in the way of that, that's the way that you move forward. And that has literally been the thing that has created so much movement in my life in every possible way. Like, I don't know how many times I've come to you with stuff and been like, this is in my space right now. Like, we have to do this.
So just being available to listen to that inner calling or that inner knowing of what your soul really is asking for.
Yeah. And I think my biggest thing that I've learned with that is the more that you are available for that, the easier the process and the road actually becomes. Like, for example, think about how, like, moving over here, right? It's like, yeah, sure, we decided we're going to move to Austin for 3 months and see what it's like and see if we want to permanently move here and all the things. But it was like, in that moment of decision, within a week, our house had sold. It was like 10 days. Our house had sold. We got more than what we actually wanted for it.
Shout out Connor.
Shout out Connor. We also, we had to sell all of our furniture, but the buyer of the house wanted to buy our furniture. Like,
yeah,
everything just lined up really easy in a moment where it should be incredibly chaotic. It felt so easy. And that's what I mean. Like, like if you actually let that nudge land and be like, okay, I'm available for whatever that means, the how will reveal itself. The way forward will reveal itself, and the less resistance that you have to it, the less resistance will be revealed to you. So it's like, if you can't go a day without thinking about it, just move. Let the nudge pull you.
The universe is always conspiring to help you on your way forward.
100%. 100%. And that's why I was always like to you, I'm like, I get so frustrated when I see that you're like, you always come back to the same thing that you love. And I love that you're following it now. Like, you're really listening to that nudge. Like, because when you see someone who the nudge is alive in and they don't know whether or not they can trust themselves yet, like they're feeling that going, fuck, can I really do this? Like, it's almost like part of the journey to sit in the uncomfortability of that and seeing you have, like, watching you navigate it, watching you be with it, and like just really leaning in. Like, I'm personally loving, I don't know if you can notice that, but I'm trying to like step back without controlling and all the things. And it's cool to be able to just like unearth that. And I think having built a career around that as well, that's why I get so lit up by it, because I'm like, I know what it's done for myself. I know what it's done for our family. I know what it's done for everyone that we get to interact with. And when I see other people doing it as well, it's like we just create this ripple of like lights in the world that keep lighting other lights up.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your thesis for life?
At the moment, it's coming back to gratitude, and it's about the journey and the destination, and being grateful for both.
Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, well, the journey has been really like unfolding in a way that neither of us could have predicted anyway. So it's like, yes, the destination, and yes, have the goal set, and I want to go here, I want to do this, I want to achieve this.
Yeah.
But also being open to, it's not just going to be a straight line. And like you said, the universe has been starting to open up different avenues, and it's like, we could go straight there, or we could take the scenic route.
Yeah.
So enjoying the journey, and yeah, I just think that point of really being open to what's opening, being open to, or being less attached to how we're getting there, and being grateful every day along the way.
Mm.
because whether we get there or not, wherever there is, like Preston says this a lot, you never know when time's up.
Mm.
Right. So what's the point in stressing today about tomorrow when tomorrow might be it? What's the point in stressing today about next year when 6 months might be it? And always just trying to find at least one or two or three moments in the day where I'm really dropped into gratitude for myself, for you, for Te Ariki, and just for life.
Yeah, you're going to make me cry. It's not hard these days. I feel like I'm crying tears of gratitude way too often. Well, not often, but
Yeah. This one might sort of take it on a bit of a left turn, but what would you say is the question that you get asked most? Either from clients or friends?
There's two that spring to mind the most. The first one is, I'm still crying from the last question. The first one is usually not in these exact words, but along the lines of, how do you hold the relationship, the business, life, and be with motherhood as well? How do you do everything together? And, my answer usually is somewhere along the lines of, your vision has to align. The only reason I can do what I do the way I do is because you and I are so connected in terms of where we're going, what we're creating, where our vision is. And so when I'm needing support, you're there. When you're needing support, I'm there. And we have this, people think it's crazy how our whiteboard in our kitchen marks everything out, and we know exactly where someone is and where we're on and all that. But for me, the way that we've structured our life to know where the other person's at creates so much ease. So it's really you have to be on the same page as the person you're going to build your life with. That's probably one of the first questions. Do you want me to answer that as well?
It's also the capacity piece
100%.
as well, right? Because it's not even 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to hold this level of just shit going down left, right, and center.
Yeah. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's shit going down. It's what's opening up. It's
just life-lifing.
Yeah, life-lifing and life being big. And, I think we would have got really caught in the chaos of it. Moving constantly at different spaces. We've traveled in multiple different countries over the last couple of months. That would have felt way too much. But yeah, you're so right, the capacity piece. And that really comes back to safety within self with all of it. It's if I don't trust myself to hold any of that, how am I going to trust you to hold that? How am I going to trust, the business to continue to support us, all those sorts of things. So I have such a level of I've fucking got me, that sometimes it can be at a detriment to our relationship, as you know. But I have such a powerful trust in myself that I technically don't need anything from you, but I want it. And so there's this element of we don't need each other, but we really complement each other. And so it's this, and I say to my clients all the time, I'm Urbain could decide to leave me tomorrow. And I would have to work with that. I would have to be with that. Would I be heartbroken? Fucking oath I would be. I would be devastated. My life would probably fall to shit. And I also know I'm strong enough to figure out whatever that step would be. But my biggest thing is I don't want that. So I'm going to work on whatever my leadership takes and requires of me as a woman to make sure that I actually don't have that outcome. So it's knowing that I'm willing to work wherever I need to go to be able to hold that. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't actually want to look at, because it's so much easier to be well, here's the reason I'm not successful. And, the business is the reason why I can't surrender in my relationship. And it's actually all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that choosing piece, right? Like constantly coming back to choosing each other every day and
Oh, yeah.
choosing the business and choosing mum life and
Yeah.
choosing family.
Yeah.
And like I just said earlier, change is inevitable.
Yeah.
Change is mandatory in life. But choosing change from alignment and from a powerful place it just changes the whole game.
And I think too, it's like, you know, one thing I've really learned, and I don't know if I've shared this with you, but so much has changed that has shifted my nervous system and created chaos internally, as you know. But the one thing that I've really learned is it's like how I be with my own humanness now is so different to how I used to be. Like, I don't judge her when she's up anymore. I don't make her wrong. I just look at like, what do I need? Like, what do I need? And then usually once I'm over my storm, as I'll put it, I'm able to really like hold her and also bring her to you. But I can't do that if I'm in judgment or criticism. And there'll be moments where I do, but I'm usually pretty quick to pull myself out of it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a real big one. The second question would be is like simple, like how do I make lots of money while I'm in business and not work? Like, you know, my clients, they are baffled with how much I actually work. Like, you know, you and I, like we've built this entire lifestyle on me working minimally. And I've created a business model that still has everyone feel one-to-one, feel seen, feel witnessed. And they don't, like a lot of people don't understand or comprehend that. So that's usually one of the biggest questions I get.
Cool.
What about you?
No one asked me anything.
Oh, bull.
No, just in being aware of time. We'll
It's
just
all right.
skip me. And
I don't want to skip you.
all right. Well, I'll question I really don't get asked many questions.
I really struggle to believe that. Might be because you give very short answers.
One would be like, how did you get so cool?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, I don't know, it just happened. But yeah, I don't think people don't really ask me super deep questions.
Do you think that's
It's
just a
generally
male thing?
Yeah, I think so. But generally,
What about like with your coaching clients and stuff?
just in general, and it's not this question, but it's different questions that sort of, it's different questions that kind of are on the same theme, and it's just around what's the opposite to toxic masculinity?
Healthy masculinity.
They'll
ask you that question.
What's healthy masculinity, or how to be in a healthy masculine?
Yeah.
And for me, the answer comes down to presence a lot, which comes and goes.
You know what? I will
But
say
when you know how to become present and super present, like connecting to your breath, connecting to the groundedness and bringing that sort of level of grounded masculine, it just creates a lot of safety in other people and in other relationships, whether that's a coaching container or even just a one-on-one conversation. So it's probably that. It's like questions around how do you be so awesome and grounded and calm and that.
I do know a lot of people teach you, can you teach me the haka? That's a question that they ask a lot.
Yeah. But that is, in essence, that is that as well.
Yeah.
Because it's taking a lot of energy and it's still grounding it. It's taking a lot of energy and it's still like being with your breath and being with the emotions and calling something forward that is technically on a spiritual level.
Can I ask you a question around that? And I don't think I've ever asked you this, but like, as the woman who receives you in that, like when you do it, it brings me to tears every single time. Like there's just something so powerful about you when that is alive in you. How do you feel in it? What happens in your body?
It's just like a blur. I just black out. No.
No.
It is though, in a sense, and especially because I learned it at such a young age. It's like kind of just like a button that you can push to sort of. Can you just say the question again?
How do you feel when you do it? Because
Oh, how do I feel?
yeah, like what happens inside of
It's
your
like
body?
it's probably the closest thing that I'd say it would be the closest feeling I could use to describe as like a flow state,
Mm,
because when you're in that state and getting yourself in that state, um, everything else sort of just drops away.
yeah.
So it's like being very present to the moment.
Mm,
And yeah, even though you know what you're doing, you know, there's probably some eyes on you and it's like a lot of energy moving.
mm,
There's a deep presence and groundedness that comes through as well while doing it. So
mm.
it's pretty cool.
It's the sexiest thing on the whole planet. Like, so when you talk in presence, like, oh man,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Okay. Next question.
Next question. All right. And this is the second last one I've got.
Okay.
Um, so it's my belief that what's really missing in today's culture and society is a rites of passage or an initiation for men, especially
Mm-hmm.
from going to boy to a man.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, there's that for women too,
Mm-hmm.
even though you have the initiation from like women into motherhood,
Yeah.
which is a whole process in itself.
Mm.
But what I find when we're lacking that, you know, structured process of initiation, when our soul knows it's time to take that step over the threshold, I find that often it's unintentional things that happen that act or serve as an initiation process.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you sort of unintentionally done that you can look back and be like, fuck, I was a little girl before then and it just made me
Yeah.
into a woman?
My relationship before you was that
Mm.
because, like, I had really played into building my life around approval of everyone. And that included him. It included my business. It included everything. And like, obviously, everyone's listened to this podcast so much. They know that that relationship was DV, all the stuff. But like, I remember before I met him, I had a prayer. Like I said, I was doing my first feminine group program, and I said, I was like, God, please, please, please give me the strength, the courage, and the wisdom to be able to guide these women and know what they need to know. What I didn't realize was I was welcoming in that. And so it was like, God was like, yeah, sure, you might have witnessed it as a child and you think you know, but until you've physically felt what those women are going through, you actually don't know. And so it was like, I really had to stand in, like, am I going to be okay for this behavior to move forward? Or do I have to actually choose what I desire in a conscious relationship? And at the time, I was really learning about how we attract like partners from that emulate our fathers and like all that sort of stuff. And so I was like, I don't ever want to attract that. Like, you know, obviously now dad is sober. We've got a great relationship. He's literally working with Preston. Like he's done so much to work on himself. So it's very different now. But the man that I grew up with was exactly what I had attracted in that relationship. And so I had to really look at how I was also bringing that in, who I was being as a woman. And I realized that I was creating so much room for toxicity because I was being that just as much as they were being that. And so I had to really like, who do I want to be in the world? And like I had to sit in that like uncomfortable stage of the shadow that we talked about earlier, because the thing was I already knew right? Like I had studied NLP, I was a master hypnotherapist. Like I'd done all the mindset work, but my body was so offline. It was so deeply offline. So that was the start of my embodiment journey. And then I met you, and you were like, go work with Preston and Alexi. And then it just like, as you know, the first couple of years of our relationship, I was rewiring how I was with men. You were that safe pillar for me to keep coming home to. And so that
Just
was part
while
of
we're
it.
on this sort of topic of relationships, and earlier we were talking about historical and societal conditioning.
Mm.
How do you think growing up as a girl with Barbies, Disney movies, that sort of thing, and the story of Prince Charming, how did that play into your unintentional initiation?
I think it definitely created a false sense that one day I'll be saved. And I looked for it a lot, and I thought he was it. And so that's where a lot of it came from, the anxious attachment style that I had to him being it. Um, but it still shows up now a lot of the time in our relationship. Like the whole, and I speak about this so much, but like one of my biggest wounding is not being provided for. And so it's like we have been built and taught that men should provide for us. But what I know within so much of my wisdom is that the more I come home to myself as a woman, I am naturally a wealth creator. Like I have, you know, how much money I've brought into our household in the last, like, you know, whatever. And whenever I'm outside of that, knowing, I go, Urbain, you have to do it. Urbain, it's on you. And it actually fucks the whole cycle of our relationship. And so I think that has started from those movies because it's taught women that we don't have the power within ourselves. We have to lean externally to someone else to give it. And so whilst I love the stories and they make me go, oh, yes, a man can hold me and provide for me. If I didn't have the consciousness to see that I first do that within myself, it creates a really toxic process.
So there's a reclamation.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think, you know, you look at most of those stories that happens through the story, like Cinderella, for example. It's not until she stands in her power and goes and gets the dress and rocks up to the ball that she actually meets him. Like, you know, but for most of us, when we're so young and deconditioned to, I have to stand in my power first, like we don't have that point. All we see is the end.
Yep.
Happy man, you know, happy wife, happy life, that sort of story that's been told. Like we're told, you know, grow up, marry someone, have kids, get the white picket fence, and life will be sweet.
Yep. And
it don't work like that.
They think getting married is the happy ending, but it's actually the beginning.
100%. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but when I was 21, I was engaged, obviously. And I remember at the time him wanting to have a baby. And I almost did it. I was infertile at the time. This is like part of the reason why I found out I was infertile. But then I had this moment where I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm trying to have a kid to save a relationship that feels like shit. Like, what? And that was the process of me actually leaving him because I realized it was just not what I wanted. But like, it was so conditioned in like the next step of relationship is that. Like, you know, like if things aren't going right, have a baby. If things aren't going right, get married. Like, it's like, well, how about you actually just ask are your values aligned? Right? If your vision and values are aligned, anything is like you can overcome fucking anything. And I think, like, I've said it before, like, I believe our son has been the glue for us in a lot of moments where both of us have wanted to walk. But underneath that, it's also the vision and the values that we've held for him that have made everything so powerful.
Well, the vision and values, we done that work very early in our relationship. Like as soon as we moved in together,
like
we sat down and like created a vision of life together and made sure that our values did align. So we put in that work, and you know, as much as he is the glue, he's also like a wedge sometimes. You know, like he still sleeps in between us. So
yeah, I gotta say, he might sleep in our bed, but I'm actually pretty proud of how we've still held so much intimacy even with that. Like, I don't think it's an excuse for people to not have that.
Yeah.
You know? So that was a massive tangent, but
That's a great answer to the question, though.
yeah.
All right. And
What was the
last question is, if you could have a billboard on like a main highway that thousands of people see every day, what would it say?
Oh, damn. About me?
Just about anything.
Oh, that's better. What's coming through right now, and I don't know if this is what I would do, but it's coming through right now. It would just say receptivity and availability are the same thing.
Beautiful.
Mm. What would yours say? Go on, tell me.
Never trust a fart. No. It depends if I was... That is a good one. That is great advice. Never trust a fart. But...
I thought you were saying mine was great.
Yours
advice.
was great too. If I was going for something more deeper, it would be trust yourself.
Yeah.
Cool. So how do we wrap this up?
How do we wrap this up? We say thank you, Urbain, for hijacking my podcast. I've actually really enjoyed this. It's been fun. Is there anything? So one question I ask every single person on my podcast is, if there was one thing, the last thing that someone was to ever hear from you, right? What would that sentence be? If there was one thing that you could share with them, knowing that that was the last thing that they'd ever hear.
You are loved.
You are loved by me. Thank you for today, for coming on here and for sharing. It's been fun. Embodied